Marcus wiped the grease from his hands with an old rag, squinting at the afternoon sun streaming through the garage windows. His small auto repair shop sat on the outskirts of downtown, sandwiched between a laundromat and a corner store that had seen better days. The smell of motor oil and metal filled the air as he worked beneath the hood of Mrs. Patterson's old Honda. She couldn't afford much, but Marcus always found a way to keep her car running without breaking her budget. The bell above the door chimed and his 7-year-old daughter Emma bounded in, her backpack nearly as big as she was. Her school uniform was slightly wrinkled, and her dark curls had escaped from the ponytail he'd carefully braided that morning. "Dad, guess what happened at school today?" Emma's eyes sparkled with excitement as she dropped her backpack by his workbench. Marcus emerged from under the hood, his weathered face breaking into a smile. "Let me guess, you beat Tommy at math again?" "Better. Mrs. Rodriguez said my science project about engines was the best in class. She wants to put it in the school display case." Emma bounced on her toes, practically vibrating with pride. "That's my girl," Marcus said, pulling her into a hug despite his dirty clothes. "Your mom would be so proud." A shadow crossed Emma's face briefly. Sarah had been gone for 3 years now, taken by cancer when Emma was just 4. The little girl barely remembered her mother's face, but Marcus made sure to keep her memory alive through stories and photographs scattered around their small apartment above the garage. "Can we celebrate with pizza tonight?" Emma asked, her enthusiasm returning. Marcus glanced at the cash register. Business had been slow lately, and the rent was due in 2 days. He'd been surviving on peanut butter sandwiches for lunch all week, but Emma didn't need to know that. "Of course, sweetheart. But first I need to finish Mrs. Patterson's car. Why don't you start your homework in the office?" Emma nodded and skipped toward the small office space Marcus had set up with a child-sized desk and chair. She was used to spending afternoons at the garage, coloring or reading while he worked. The local daycare was too expensive, and Marcus couldn't bring himself to leave her with strangers anyway. As he returned to the Honda, Marcus heard the screech of tires and a tremendous crash from the street outside. The sound of twisted metal and shattering glass sent ice through his veins. He dropped his wrench and ran toward the door, Emma close behind him. A sleek black sedan had collided with a delivery truck at the intersection just 50 feet from the garage. Steam rose from both vehicles, and the sedan's front end was completely crumpled. The delivery truck had rolled onto its side, boxes scattered across the asphalt. "Emma, stay inside and call 911, Marcus shouted as he sprinted toward the wreckage. The delivery truck driver was already climbing out through his window, shaken but apparently uninjured. But the sedan's driver's door was crushed shut, and Marcus could see someone slumped over the steering wheel inside. He ran to the passenger side and yanked on the handle. The door was jammed. Through the spider-webbed windshield, he could see a woman in an expensive business suit, unconscious and bleeding from a cut on her forehead. Her airbag had deployed, but the impact had been severe. Marcus grabbed a crowbar from his truck and wedged it between the doorframe and the car body. Using all his strength, he pried the door open just enough to squeeze inside. The woman was breathing but unresponsive. He could smell gasoline, and he noticed fluid leaking from somewhere beneath the car. "Ma'am, can you hear me?" He gently shook her shoulder, careful not to move her neck too much. "We need to get you out of here." Her eyes fluttered open, unfocused and confused. She was probably in her early 40s, with short auburn hair and sharp features that spoke of intelligence and determination. Even unconscious, she had an air of authority about her. "What happened?" she mumbled, trying to sit up. "You've been in an accident. Don't move too much. I'm going to help you out. But we need to do this carefully." Marcus could hear sirens in the distance, but the smell of gasoline was getting stronger. He made a decision. Sliding one arm behind her back and another under her knees, he carefully lifted her from the driver's seat. She was smaller than she'd appeared, probably barely 5'4", but she felt solid and athletic. "My briefcase," she whispered as he carried her away from the car. "My laptop. Those things can be replaced," Marcus said firmly. "You can't be." He had just set her down on the sidewalk when the sedan's engine compartment erupted in flames. The fire spread quickly, and within minutes the entire car was engulfed. If they had stayed inside even 30 seconds longer, they both would have been trapped. The ambulance arrived first, followed by fire trucks and police cars. Paramedics immediately began examining the woman while Marcus gave his statement to the police. Emma watched from the garage doorway, her eyes wide with concern and admiration for her father. "Sir, you saved that woman's life," Officer Rodriguez told him. "If you hadn't gotten her out when you did—" Marcus just nodded, watching as the paramedics loaded the woman onto a stretcher. She was conscious now, arguing with them about going to the hospital. Even injured and shaken, she clearly wasn't used to anyone telling her what to do. Their eyes met briefly as they wheeled her toward the ambulance. She mouthed, "Thank you," before disappearing inside. Marcus raised his hand in a small wave, assuming he'd never see her again. "Dad, you're a hero." Emma ran to him and threw her arms around his waist. "I just did what anyone would do, Em." But as he watched the ambulance disappear down the street, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that this chance encounter would somehow change their quiet life. He had no idea that the woman he'd pulled from the burning car was Victoria Sterling, CEO of Sterling Industries, one of the largest tech companies in the state. And he certainly couldn't have predicted the storm of attention that would soon descend upon their small world. For now, though, he was just a single father who needed to finish fixing Mrs. Patterson's Honda and figure out how to buy his daughter that pizza he'd promised. The next morning brought an unexpected visitor to Marcus's garage. He was underneath Mr. Chen's pickup truck, wrestling with a stubborn oil drain plug, when he heard expensive heels clicking across the concrete floor. Emma was at school, so he wasn't expecting anyone, especially not at 8 in the morning. "Excuse me, are you Marcus Rodriguez?" The voice was crisp, professional, and somehow familiar. Marcus rolled out from under the truck and found himself looking up at the woman from yesterday's accident. Victoria Sterling stood in his garage wearing a perfectly tailored navy suit, her auburn hair styled immaculately despite the bandage visible on her forehead. She looked completely out of place among the tools and car parts, like a diamond in a toolbox. "That's me," Marcus said, wiping his hands on his coveralls as he stood. "How are you feeling? You took quite a hit yesterday." "I'm fine, thanks to you." Victoria's smile was polite but distant, the kind practiced in boardrooms and business meetings. "The doctor said I had a mild concussion, but I insisted on being discharged last night. I don't have time to lie around in a hospital bed." Marcus studied her face. The cut on her forehead looked deeper than he'd initially thought. And there were dark circles under her eyes that makeup couldn't quite hide. She was clearly pushing herself too hard, but he sensed she wouldn't appreciate him pointing that out. "I'm glad you're okay. That was a nasty crash." He gestured toward his small office area. "Would you like to sit down? You still look a little pale." "I'm perfectly fine," Victoria said quickly, though she did accept his offer. As she settled into the worn chair across from his desk, Marcus noticed her hands trembling slightly. "I came to thank you properly for what you did yesterday, and to discuss compensation." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Compensation?" Victoria opened her leather briefcase and pulled out a folder. "I've had my lawyers draft a check for $50,000 as a token of my appreciation. It's a small amount considering you saved my life, but I thought it would be appropriate." Marcus stared at the check she held out to him. $50,000. That was more money than he made in 2 years. It would pay off his debts, cover Emma's college fund, maybe even let him expand the garage. But something about the transaction felt wrong, like she was buying his silence or trying to close a business deal rather than expressing genuine gratitude. "Mrs. Sterling, I appreciate the gesture, but I can't accept this." Victoria's perfectly composed expression cracked slightly. "I'm sorry, what?" "I said I can't accept it. What I did yesterday wasn't about money. Anyone would have done the same thing. Mr. Rodriguez, you clearly don't understand who I am." Victoria's tone shifted, becoming more authoritative. "I'm the CEO of Sterling Industries. We're a multi-billion-dollar company. This amount is nothing to me, but it could change your life." Marcus leaned back in his chair, studying her face. Now he understood the expensive clothes, the air of command, the assumption that money could solve everything. She was used to getting her way, used to people jumping when she spoke. "You're right, I don't really know who you are, but I know who I am. I'm a guy who fixes cars and takes care of his daughter. I don't need your money to feel good about helping someone." Victoria looked genuinely bewildered. "But you could use this money. Your garage is—" She glanced around at the modest space, the aging equipment, the oil stains on the concrete. "You could expand, upgrade your equipment, hire employees. Maybe I could, but then it wouldn't be my garage anymore, would it? It would be yours. That's not what I meant, isn't it?" Marcus stood and walked to the window overlooking the street, where the accident had occurred. The intersection had been cleaned up, but he could still see scorch marks on the asphalt where her car had burned. "Look, Mrs. Sterling, I get that you're trying to be generous. But when you hand someone that much money, strings come attached whether you mean them to or not." Victoria was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice had lost some of its corporate edge. "I've never had someone refuse my gratitude before. I'm not refusing your gratitude. I'm refusing your money. There's a difference." She folded the check and put it back in her briefcase. "Then what can I do for you? There must be something you need. Equipment for your garage? A college fund for your daughter?" Marcus turned back to face her. "How do you know about my daughter?" Victoria had the grace to look slightly embarrassed. "I had my assistant do some research. Emma, age 7, attends Riverside Elementary. Your wife passed away 3 years ago. You've been running this garage for 8 years. Took it over when the previous owner retired. You have an excellent reputation for honest work and fair prices. You investigated me?" Marcus's voice was calm, but Victoria could sense the steel beneath it. "It's standard procedure. I needed to know who saved my life." "No, you needed to know who you were dealing with. Needed to figure out how much I was worth, how much it would take to make this go away quietly." Marcus sat back down across from her. "Tell me something, Mrs. Sterling. When was the last time someone told you no?" Victoria opened her mouth to respond, then closed it again. Marcus could see her thinking, actually considering the question seriously. "I honestly can't remember," she admitted finally. "But that doesn't change the fact that I owe you a debt I can't repay. You don't owe me anything. That's what you don't understand. Sometimes people do good things just because they're good things to do. In my experience, everyone wants something. Then you've been spending time with the wrong people." Victoria studied Marcus's face, looking for some angle, some hidden agenda, but all she saw was sincerity and maybe a little pity. The pity bothered her more than she wanted to admit. "My board of directors is insisting on some kind of public recognition ceremony," she said. "Local hero saves CEO, good publicity for both of us. It would mean a lot of media attention, interviews, possibly endorsement opportunities." Marcus shook his head. "Not interested. The publicity alone could triple your business. I have enough business. More than I can handle most days." Victoria stood up, clearly frustrated. "Mr. Rodriguez, I'm trying to help you here. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. For you, maybe. For me, it's just Tuesday." Marcus stood as well, walking her toward the door. "Mrs. Sterling, I'm glad you're okay. I'm glad I was there to help. But that's where this story ends for me." As Victoria reached the door, she turned back one more time. "What if I offered you a job? Head of corporate security, 6-figure salary, full benefits. Then I'd have to wonder what happened to the guy who used to have that job and whether he had a family to support too." Victoria stared at him for a moment longer, then walked to her waiting car without another word. As the black town car disappeared down the street, Marcus returned to Mr. Chen's pickup truck, but he found himself wondering if he'd seen the last of Victoria Sterling. Something in her eyes told him this conversation was far from over. 3 days after Victoria's visit, Marcus was closing up the garage when a news van pulled up outside, then another. By the time Emma's school bus arrived, there were 5 media vehicles parked along the street and reporters with microphones trying to peer through his windows. "Dad, why are all those people outside?" Emma asked as she climbed down from the bus, her backpack bouncing on her shoulders. "I'm not sure, sweetheart. Let's go around back." Marcus guided her to the rear entrance of their building, hoping to avoid the growing crowd out front. But it was too late. A reporter had spotted them and was already approaching with a cameraman close behind. "Mr. Rodriguez, I'm Janet Mills from Channel 7 News. Could we get a few words about your heroic rescue of Victoria Sterling?" "No comment," Marcus said firmly, ushering Emma toward the back door. "Just a quick interview about what it felt like to save one of the most powerful women in the state." Marcus paused with his hand on the doorknob. "Most powerful women in the state? You didn't know? Victoria Sterling isn't just any CEO. Sterling Industries employs over 30,000 people. She's worth nearly $2 billion. Her company basically built half the tech infrastructure for this city." Emma's eyes went wide. "Dad, you saved a billionaire?" "I saved a person," Marcus corrected, but he was beginning to understand why. Victoria had been so surprised by his refusal of her money. To her, $50,000 really was pocket change. The reporter pressed closer. "Mr. Rodriguez, our sources tell us that Mrs. Sterling offered you a substantial reward which you declined. Can you tell us why?" "Because that's not why I did." "Yeah." Marcus opened the door and gently pushed Emma inside. "And that's all I'm going to say." But the media circus was just getting started. Over the next few days, the story grew and spread. Local mechanic refuses fortune from grateful CEO became a national news story. Marcus found himself labeled as everything from the last honest man in America to a fool who doesn't understand opportunity. Social media exploded with opinions. Some people called him a hero for his principles. Others called him an idiot for turning down easy money. A few suggested he was holding out for more. The worst comments came from people who insisted no one could be that selfless, that he must have some angle. The attention was affecting Emma too. Kids at school had started treating her differently, some impressed by her father's story, others jealous of the attention. Teachers looked at Marcus with new curiosity during pickup, and he could hear parents whispering as he walked by. "I don't like this, Dad," Emma said one evening as they ate dinner in their small apartment above the garage. The windows were covered because photographers had been trying to get pictures through them. "Everyone's acting weird." "I know, Em. It'll blow over soon. These things always do." But it didn't blow over. If anything, it got worse when Victoria Sterling held a press conference announcing the creation of the Sterling Foundation's Good Samaritan Award, with Marcus as the first recipient. The award came with a $100,000 prize and a scholarship fund for Emma's education. Marcus learned about it the same way everyone else did, from the evening news. He was so angry he called Victoria's office directly, demanding to speak with her. "Mr. Rodriguez." Victoria's voice was cool and professional when she finally took his call. "I assume you're calling about the press conference. What you did was wrong and you know it. You had no right to use my name or my daughter's name without permission. I'm trying to honor you. You're trying to force my hand. You think if you announce it publicly, I'll have to accept because refusing would look ungrateful." There was a long pause. "Would that work?" Marcus almost smiled despite his anger. At least she was honest. "No, Mrs. Sterling, it wouldn't. You can keep your award and your money, but you need to leave my family alone. The scholarship fund is for Emma. Don't let your pride hurt her future. Don't you dare lecture me about what's best for my daughter. I've been taking care of her just fine without your help. Have you? How much money do you have saved for her? College? What happens if you get sick and can't work? What if the garage fails?" Marcus gripped the phone tighter. Victoria had hid every fear that kept him awake at night, every worry he carried about providing for Emma's future. "That's my problem to solve," he said quietly. "It doesn't have to be. I could set up a trust fund. Emma would never have to worry about money for school or anything else. And what would that teach her? That she doesn't have to work for anything? That money just appears when you need it? It would teach her that sometimes good things happen to good people. No, it would teach her that her father's principles can be bought if the price is high enough." Victoria was quiet for so long, Marcus thought she might have hung up. When she spoke again, her voice had changed somehow, become less certain. "Mr. Rodriguez, may I ask you something personal?" "I suppose." "What do you want for Emma? I mean, really want for her future?" Marcus looked through the doorway to where Emma sat at the kitchen table, working on her math homework with intense concentration. Her tongue stuck out slightly when she was thinking hard, just like Sarah used to do. I want her to be happy. I want her to know that she's capable of taking care of herself, that she doesn't need anyone else to save her. I want her to understand that character matters more than money, that doing the right thing is its own reward, even if doing the right thing means she has fewer opportunities. Especially then, Mrs. Sterling, my daughter's going to face challenges in her life that money can't fix. The best gift I can give her is the knowledge that she's strong enough to handle whatever comes her way. And if she disagrees when she's older, if she resents you for turning down opportunities on her behalf, Marcus considered this. It was a fair question, and one that had been troubling him since all the media attention started. Then I'll tell her the truth, that I made the best decision I could with the information I had, that I chose to teach her values over wealth. If she wants to make different choices when she's an adult, that's her right. Victoria was quiet again. When she spoke, her voice was softer than he'd ever heard it. Mr. Rodriguez, would you be willing to meet with me again? Not about money or rewards, or any of that. I'd like to understand how you see the world, because honestly, it's completely foreign to me. Marcus looked out the window at the news vans that were still parked outside, at the reporters who continued to turn his quiet life into a public spectacle. Mrs. Sterling, with all due respect, your world and my world don't mix well. Every time they do, somebody gets hurt, and it's never the billionaire. Despite Marcus's rejection, Victoria found herself driving past his garage almost daily. She told herself it was because the route was convenient, but she knew that wasn't true. Something about Marcus Rodriguez had gotten under her skin in a way she couldn't explain or dismiss. Her assistant had prepared detailed reports about him, but the facts on paper didn't capture what made him tick. Former Army mechanic, honorably discharged after his wife's diagnosis. No criminal record. Excellent. Credit despite modest income, beloved by his customers, active in Emma's school. Coached Little League on weekends. The picture that emerged was of a man who lived quietly and deliberately, someone who had built a small but meaningful life. It was a life Victoria couldn't understand but found herself envying. Her own world felt increasingly hollow by comparison. Board meetings filled with people who agreed with everything she said. Social events where conversations revolved around stock prices and market trends. A penthouse apartment that cost more than most people made in a lifetime but felt cold and empty when she came home each night. The breaking point came on a Thursday evening. Victoria was working late again, reviewing quarterly reports, when her assistant knocked on her office door. Mrs. Sterling, there's a situation you should know about. It's regarding Mr. Rodriguez. Victoria looked up from her computer. What kind of situation? Apparently some reporters have been harassing his daughter at school. One of them tried to interview her during recess. The school had to call Mr. Rodriguez to come get her early. Victoria felt something twist in her stomach. Is she okay? According to the principal, she was pretty upset. Mr. Rodriguez was not happy either. Victoria stood up so quickly her chair rolled backward. Get my car ready, I'm going to see them. Mrs. Sterling, it's after 9 p.m. Perhaps you should call first? No. This is my fault. I need to fix it. The garage was closed when Victoria arrived, but she could see lights on in the apartment upstairs. She parked and walked to the side entrance, then stopped. What was she doing here? What could she possibly say that would make this better? Before she could change her mind, the door opened. Marcus stood there in jeans and a t-shirt, looking tired and older than his 35 years. Mrs. Sterling, I figured you'd show up eventually. Is Emma okay? She's scared. Some reporter convinced her teacher to let him talk to the kids about current events. He started asking Emma questions about me, about our family, about whether we were really poor. She didn't understand why this stranger knew so much about us. Victoria closed her eyes. Marcus, I'm sorry. This isn't what I wanted, isn't it? You wanted me to accept your money. When I wouldn't, you made the story public, thinking it would pressure me. Now my daughter is paying the price for your stubbornness. That's not fair, isn't it? You could call off the media attention tomorrow if you wanted to. One statement from you saying the story is over, that you want privacy, and they'd move. On to the next thing. Victoria knew he was right. A few words from her could end Emma's ordeal. But ending the media coverage would mean admitting she'd been wrong, that her attempts to reward Marcus had backfired badly. What do you want me to say? The truth. That I helped you because it was the right thing to do. That there's nothing more to the story. That you respect my privacy and want everyone else to do the same. And if I do that, will you at least consider the scholarship for Emma? Not as a reward, but as an investment in her future? Marcus shook his head. You don't give up, do you? In my line of work, giving up means failure. This isn't work, Mrs. Sterling, this is life. They're not the same thing. Victoria studied his face in the dim light from the street lamp. Would you be willing to show me the difference? What do you mean? Spend a day with me. Show me how you live, how you see the world. Help me understand why you think money complicates everything. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Why would you want that? Because I've spent the last 2 weeks trying to figure out what makes you different from every other person I've met in the last 20 years. And because maybe if I understand you better, I can fix the mess I've made. One day. No cameras, no reporters, no business talk. Just show me what a normal life looks like. Marcus glanced back toward the stairs leading to his apartment, where Emma was presumably sleeping. If I do this, you call off the media circus tomorrow? I'll hold a press conference first thing in the morning. And no more surprise awards or foundations or job offers? Victoria hesitated. No more surprises. That's not the same thing. No more awards or job offers without your explicit consent first. And the scholarship fund? Remains available if you ever change your mind. No pressure, no publicity. Marcus extended his hand. Saturday then. But we do this my way, on my terms. Victoria shook his hand, surprised by how rough and strong it was compared to the soft handshakes she was used to in boardrooms. One condition, though, Marcus added. Leave the business suits at home. If you want to see how regular people live, you need to dress like a regular person. Victoria looked down at her expensive designer outfit. I'm not sure I own anything that qualifies as regular. Then buy something. There's a Target about 10 minutes from here. After Victoria left, Marcus stood in his doorway for a long time, wondering what he'd just agreed to. Showing Victoria his world felt dangerous somehow, like exposing something precious to someone who might not understand its value. But Emma's frightened face when he'd picked her up from school that afternoon had convinced him. If spending one day with Victoria Sterling could give his daughter her privacy back, it was worth the risk. He just hoped he could trust her to keep her word. In his experience, people with that much power rarely gave it up willingly, even when they promised to. The next morning, Victoria held her press conference as promised. She was professional and concise, explaining that the story had been blown out of proportion, that Mr. Rodriguez was a private person who deserved respect, and that anyone continuing to harass him or his family would face legal consequences from Sterling Industries' legal team. The media attention didn't disappear overnight, but it diminished significantly. By Friday, the news vans were gone and Emma was able to walk to school without photographers following her. Saturday morning arrived gray and drizzly, perfect weather for staying inside with coffee and cartoons. But at exactly 9 a.m., Marcus heard a knock on his door. When he opened it, he barely recognized Victoria Sterling. Gone was the power suit and perfect hair. Instead, she wore dark jeans, white sneakers that looked like they'd never been worn, and a blue sweater that still had creases from being folded in a store. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail and she wore minimal makeup. She looked younger, more approachable, but also somehow lost. Ready for your lesson in normal life? Marcus asked. Victoria took a deep breath. Ready as I'll ever be. Victoria's education in normal life began at 6:30 in the morning when Marcus's alarm went off. She had arrived early, determined to see his entire routine, and was surprised when he answered the door already dressed. You're up early, she observed. Emma's got soccer practice at 8. Before that, we need breakfast and I need to check on Mrs. Patterson's car. She's picking it up first thing Monday and I want to make sure everything's perfect. Victoria followed him downstairs to the garage, watching as he methodically inspected his work from the previous day. He checked fluid levels, tested electrical connections, and ran the engine for several minutes, listening carefully to every sound. "You're very thorough," Victoria said. "Mrs. Patterson is 83 years old and lives alone. That car is her lifeline to the grocery store, the doctor, her bridge club. If something goes wrong, she could be stranded for days before anyone notices." Marcus wiped his hands on a rag and locked the hood. "When you're responsible for someone's safety, you don't cut corners. Even for small jobs? Especially for small jobs? Mrs. Patterson pays me $40 for an oil change. Some places charge 60 or 70. But she's been coming here for 8 years, never complains, always pays on time, and she tips Emma $5 every Christmas. You think I'm going to give her anything less than my best work?" Victoria thought about the impersonal service she received everywhere she went, how people jumped to attention when they recognized her name or saw her platinum credit card. When was the last time someone had treated her like Mrs. Patterson, as a person rather than a dollar sign? Emma appeared at the bottom of the stairs, already dressed in her soccer uniform, her hair in a neat braid that had clearly taken Marcus considerable time and effort. "Hi, Miss Victoria. Dad said you're coming with us today." "If that's okay with you," Victoria replied, smiling at the little girl's enthusiasm. "Sure, but you should know Dad's not very good at soccer. He tries to coach our team, but he keeps calling it football." Marcus ruffled his daughter's hair. "That's because it is football. The rest of the world just calls it that." Their first stop was the grocery store. Victoria had expected a quick trip, but Marcus moved through the aisles methodically, checking prices, using coupons, comparing unit costs on different brands. Emma helped by retrieving items from high shelves and crossing things off their carefully written list. "Why do you buy the generic cereal?" Victoria asked, watching Marcus choose a store brand over a name brand that was only 50 cents more. "Because Emma can't tell the difference, and 50 cents times 52 weeks is $26. That's enough for a trip to the movies." Victoria did quick mental math. "You budget that carefully?" "Every dollar has a job in our house: food, rent, utilities, Emma's school supplies, car insurance, emergency fund. There's not much left over for extras." At the soccer field, Victoria watched Marcus transform from careful budgeter to enthusiastic coach. He high-fived every player, offered gentle corrections, and celebrated every small success. When one little boy started crying after missing an easy goal, Marcus knelt beside him and talked quietly until the tears stopped and the boy ran back onto the field. "You're good with kids," Victoria observed. "Kids are honest. They haven't learned to pretend they're something they're not yet." "Is that what you think adults do? Pretend?" Marcus glanced at her. "Don't you?" Victoria didn't answer, but the question stayed with her throughout the morning. After soccer, they went to the hardware store where Marcus spent 20 minutes comparing prices on motor oil. Then to the library, where Emma checked out 6 books and Marcus helped her with a computer research project for school. Victoria noticed that he never hurried Emma, never acted impatient even when she took her time choosing books or asked him to spell difficult words. "Doesn't this take a long time?" Victoria whispered, as Emma deliberated between 2 identical-looking picture books. "Everything worthwhile takes time," Marcus replied. "That's how you know it's worth doing." For lunch, they went to a small diner where the waitress knew their names and their usual orders. Emma got a grilled cheese sandwich and chocolate milk. Marcus ordered a burger but gave Emma half his fries when she finished hers. Victoria found herself genuinely hungry for the first time in years, enjoying food that wasn't prepared by a chef or served at a business meeting. "This place isn't in any guidebooks," Marcus said, noticing Victoria looking around. "But Maria's been running it for 30 years. Best comfort food in the city, and she knows every regular customer's story." As if on cue, Maria appeared at their table. "Marcus, honey, how's business?" "Can't complain." "Maria, I'd like you to meet my friend Victoria." Victoria noticed he didn't use her last name or mention her company. To Maria, she was just Victoria, and that felt surprisingly refreshing. "Nice to meet you, honey," Maria said warmly. "Any friend of Marcus and Emma is family here. You make sure he treats you right, okay?" After lunch, they spent the afternoon at the park. Emma played on the swings while Marcus and Victoria sat on a bench watching her. The conversation drifted from topic to topic, and Victoria found herself talking about things she hadn't discussed in years. "I used to love playgrounds. When I was little," she said, watching Emma climb the monkey bars. "There was one near my grandmother's house with this enormous oak tree. I'd spend hours there just reading and imagining." "What happened to that girl?" Marcus asked quietly. Victoria was quiet for so long he thought she wouldn't answer. "She grew up, I suppose. Learned that imagination doesn't pay the bills or impress investors. Maybe. Or maybe she just forgot that some things are more important than bills and investors." As the afternoon wore on, Victoria began to understand what Marcus had been trying to tell her. This wasn't just about money or principles. It was about a completely different way of seeing the world. Marcus measured success in Emma's laughter, in Mrs. Patterson's grateful smile, in the respect of his neighbors. His wealth wasn't in his bank account, but in his relationships, his integrity, his peace of mind. "I have a confession," Victoria said as they walked back to the car. "I've been miserable for years. I have everything anyone could want, but I go to bed every night feeling empty. Watching you today, seeing how you live, it's like you have something I lost somewhere along the way." "What's that?" "Purpose, I guess. You know why you get up every morning, you know what matters." Marcus unlocked his truck and helped Emma into her car seat. "You could have that too, you know." "How?" "I can't just walk away from my company, my responsibilities. I'm not suggesting you should, but maybe you could remember why you started the company in the first place. What were you trying to accomplish before it became about profit margins and stock prices?" Victoria thought back to her early days as an entrepreneur, when she'd worked 18-hour days not because she had to, but because she believed in what she was building. She'd wanted to create technology that would make people's lives better, solve real problems, make a difference. "I wanted to change the world," she said, softly, "so what's stopping you?" That evening, Marcus cooked dinner in his small kitchen while Emma set the table and Victoria watched, feeling strangely at home in their modest apartment. The meal was simple: spaghetti with homemade sauce, salad from the garden Emma maintained, in planters on their fire escape, garlic bread that filled the apartment with warm, comforting smells. "This is better than any restaurant I've eaten at in years," Victoria said and meant it. "Secret ingredient," Emma said conspiratorially. "What's that?" "Love," Emma giggled. "That's what Dad always says." After dinner, they played board games and watched a movie. Victoria found herself laughing more than she had in months, relaxed in a way she'd almost forgotten was possible. When Emma fell asleep curled against her father during the movie, Marcus carefully carried her to bed, and Victoria could see the love and protectiveness in every gentle movement. "Thank you," Victoria said, as Marcus returned from tucking Emma in. "For today, for showing me this. I understand now why you turned down my offers. Do you? This life you've built, it's not about the money because money can't buy what you really have. Peace, contentment, genuine relationships, those things have to be earned differently." Marcus nodded. "That's part of it, but it's also about Emma. Everything I do, every choice I make, I ask myself what it's teaching her. If I'd taken your money, what lesson would that be? That her father's a practical man who knows an opportunity when he sees one. Or that people can be bought. That there's a price for everything, including integrity." Victoria was quiet, thinking about her own childhood, her own father's lessons about success and achievement. What if you're wrong? What if the lesson is that good deeds are rewarded, that the world isn't always harsh and unfair? Maybe. But I've seen what money does to people, Victoria. I've seen how it changes them, how it makes them trust the wrong things, depend on the wrong things. Emma's going to face enough temptations in her life. I don't need to add more. As Victoria prepared to leave, she turned back to Marcus one more time. "What if I told you I wanted to change? That today showed me I need to find my way back to who I used to be? I'd say that's between you and the person you see in the mirror every morning. Would you help me? Not as a consultant or advisor, just as a friend." Marcus studied her face, looking for any trace of the calculating businesswoman who had first walked into his garage. He saw something different now, something more genuine and uncertain. I'd say that real change comes from inside. I can't do it for you. But if you're serious about finding your way back to that girl who loved playgrounds and wanted to change the world, then I suppose we'll see. As Victoria drove home that night, she looked at her city with new eyes. She passed the homeless shelter, where she'd never volunteered, the community center that could use upgrading, the public schools that needed better funding. For the first time in years, she saw not just a market or a business opportunity, but a community where she could make a real difference. The next morning would bring new challenges, difficult decisions about how to reconcile her newfound perspective with her corporate responsibilities. But for tonight, Victoria Sterling allowed herself to dream about the woman she used to be, and the woman she might still become. 6 months later, Marcus was working late in his garage when he heard the familiar sound of expensive heels on concrete. But this time, Victoria's visit didn't surprise him. They'd developed an unlikely friendship over the past months, meeting occasionally for coffee or lunch, sometimes with Emma, sometimes just the two of them. "How did the board meeting go?" Marcus asked, without looking up from the engine he was rebuilding. "About as well as expected," Victoria said, settling into the chair beside his workbench. "They think I've lost my mind." "Have you?" Victoria smiled. "Probably, but it's the good kind of crazy." She wasn't wrong. In the 6 months since their day together, Victoria had made changes that had sent shockwaves through Sterling Industries and the business community. She'd implemented a living wage policy for all employees, established an employee profit-sharing program, and redirected 10% of the company's annual profits into community development programs. The changes hadn't been popular with shareholders, but they'd been popular with employees and customers. Worker productivity was up, turnover was down, and Sterling Industries had gained a reputation as one of the best companies to work for in the state. "The community center project got final approval today," Victoria said. "Groundbreaking is next month." Marcus looked up from his work. "The one in Emma's neighborhood." "The very one. Full gymnasium, computer lab, after-school programs, job training for adults. It should be completed by next fall." "That's good news. Emma's excited about the art classes you planned." Victoria had discovered that using her wealth and influence to solve real problems gave her the same satisfaction that building her company once had. The community center was just one of several projects she'd funded, all of them focused on practical improvements to people's daily lives. "Marcus, can I ask you something?" "Shoot. Do you ever regret it?" "Turning down the money, I mean." "Emma's getting older and her needs are going to get more expensive. High school, college, all of it." Marcus set down his wrench and really looked at her. "Are you asking for Emma's sake, or for yours?" Victoria considered the question honestly. "Both. Maybe. I keep thinking about what you said about teaching her lessons, but I also wonder if I'm being selfish wanting to help because it makes me feel better about myself." "And what conclusion did you come to?" "That motives don't have to be pure to produce good results, but they should be honest." Marcus nodded. "That's fair. So what's your honest motive?" Victoria was quiet for a moment, gathering her thoughts. Over the past 6 months, she'd learned that Marcus never accepted easy answers or let her hide behind corporate speak. "I want to help because you saved my life in more ways than one." That day at the park, watching Emma play, talking about who I used to be, it woke something up in me that had been asleep for years. "You gave me back my purpose, my humanity. I want to do something meaningful for you and Emma, not to pay off a debt, but because you're important to me." "As friends?" "As friends," Victoria confirmed. "No strings, no expectations, no hidden agendas. Just someone who cares about you both and has the means to help." Marcus wiped his hands on his coveralls and leaned against the workbench. "What did you have in mind?" Victoria pulled a folder from her briefcase. "A college savings account for Emma. Not a full ride, not a trust fund that removes all her motivation to work hard. Just enough to cover tuition at a good state school, maybe some living expenses. She'd still need to earn scholarships, still need to work for spending money, still need to choose her path." Marcus opened the folder and saw paperwork for an account in Emma's name. funded with enough money to cover 4 years of college expenses at current rates. It's set up so you control it until she's 18, Victoria continued. If you decide she's not ready for college, if she chooses a different path, if you think she needs to earn more of it herself, you can adjust accordingly. It's a tool, not a guarantee. Marcus studied the paperwork carefully. This is different from what you offered before, because I'm different from who I was before. Before I was trying to buy my way out of feeling guilty. Now I'm trying to invest in someone I care about. And if I say no again? Victoria shrugged. Then you say no. Our friendship doesn't depend on whether you accept my help. But I hope you'll consider it not as charity but as what it is. A friend who wants to help secure a bright kid's future. Marcus set the folder on his workbench and looked toward the stairs leading to their apartment, where Emma was presumably doing her homework. She was 8 now, smart as a whip, full of dreams about becoming a scientist or an engineer or maybe taking over her father's garage someday. Why is this so important to you? He asked. Because I never had children. I never had the chance to invest in the next generation, to be part of someone's future. Emma represents hope to me. Proof that good people raise good kids, that the world can be better than it is now. And you want to be part of that? If you'll let me. Not as her savior or benefactor, just as someone who believes in her potential. Marcus picked up the folder again, reading through the terms more carefully. It really was exactly what Victoria had described. A tool that would give Emma options without removing her incentive to work hard. There's something else, Victoria said quietly. The garage next door to yours is going up for sale. Mrs. Chen is retiring and her son wants to sell the property. I know. I looked into buying it, but the price is way out of my range. What? If it wasn't? What if you could expand your business, hire a few employees, maybe offer more services? Marcus raised an eyebrow. Victoria, hear me out. Not as a gift, as a business investment. I've done my research. Your reputation is excellent, your customers are loyal, and this neighborhood is growing. A larger auto repair facility would be profitable. I provide the initial capital, you pay it back over time at a reasonable interest rate. You want to be my business partner? I want to be your investor. There's a difference. You'd own the business, make all the decisions. I'd just be the bank, except with better terms than any bank would give you. Marcus set down the folder and looked at Victoria seriously. 6 months ago, I would have said no immediately. I would have assumed you were trying to control me, buy my loyalty, or turn my business into something it's not. And now I know you well enough to understand that your motives are more complicated than that. You're not trying to buy me. You're trying to invest in the kind of life and values you've decided you want to support. Victoria nodded. That's a fair assessment. But I still have concerns. What happens if the business fails? What happens if we disagree about something important? What happens if our friendship changes? We write it all down in a contract. Clear terms, clear expectations, clear exit strategies. And if our friendship changes, well, that's a risk worth taking. Some of the best partnerships start with friendship. Marcus was quiet for a long time, thinking through the implications. The expansion would allow him to hire other mechanics, maybe offer training programs for young people interested in the trade. He could serve more customers, take on more complex repairs, build something lasting that Emma could inherit if she chose to. The college fund and the business loan, he said finally. They're separate offers? Completely separate. Except one, both, or neither. Each stands on its own merits. And if I accept both, you don't suddenly become Emma's honorary aunt or my business advisor? Victoria laughed. I become exactly what I am now. A friend who happens to have more money than she knows what to do with, and has finally learned how to use it wisely. Marcus looked at the paperwork again, then at Victoria. I need time to think about it, and I need to talk to Emma about the college fund. She's old enough to have an opinion about her future. Of course, take all the time you need. As Victoria prepared to leave, Marcus called her name. Victoria, thank you. Not just for the offers, but for becoming the kind of person who makes offers like this. You've changed a lot in 6 months. Victoria paused at the door. So have you, you know. 6 months ago, you would have said no without even considering it. The fact that you're thinking about it means you've learned to trust again, to believe that not everyone with money has ulterior motives. Maybe we've both learned something about the difference between charity and friendship. Maybe we have. After Victoria left, Marcus sat in his quiet garage for a long time, thinking about choices and consequences, about the lessons he wanted to teach Emma and the life he wanted to build for her. For the first time since Sarah's death, the future felt full of possibilities rather than just responsibilities. Upstairs, Emma was working on her math homework, completely unaware that her life might be about to change in wonderful ways. Tomorrow, Marcus would sit down with his daughter and ask her what she thought about having a college fund and what she dreamed of studying someday. But tonight, he allowed himself to imagine what it might be like to expand his garage, to hire other mechanics to build something bigger while staying true to the values that had always guided him. For the first time in years, Marcus Rodriguez dared to dream about the future. And for the first time in even longer, Victoria Sterling had found a way to use her wealth that made her genuinely happy. Some rescues, they both realized, work both ways.